And Jeff has a very busy NAB show. And what I wanted to talk about today was a little bit of that. We talked previously about why it's good to go to the NAB show to make network connections with the folks that will use their equipment. And we talk a lot about how to repair things or what's the best one to buy in the case of replacing. And the big trauma for many of us is walking the floor, uh, West Hall to Central Hall, for instance, this year. But there's a lot more going on. And for Nortel's folks, it started not on Sunday morning. How long were you there, Jeff?
So I flew out of Halifax the Monday before the show, went to Denver to visit a customer there, and flew into Vegas on the Wednesday. We had people on the ground in Vegas starting Sunday morning before the show. So, yeah, easy a week ahead of time.
And you
And
were there to help set up the booth.
Not me. No, no, no. There are people that do the heavy lifting, but I just wander around and look cute. Now, I argue that I am better fitted to be the gopher. They say, Jeff, go for water. Jeff, go for this, go for that, and that's what I do.
What
But
about shutdown?
so
Did you dismantle?
Oh yeah, I stay for teardown. But ahead of time, I mean, the Association of Public Radio Engineers has their Public Radio Engineering Conference the Thursday and Friday prior to the show. This year, again, for the second time, the Society of Broadcast Engineers did their Ennis sessions for 2 days on the Friday and Saturday before the show. So I got to put together the RF 101 track, and I think David's still here. David and Fred Willard did the media over IP, so audio and video over IP. All told, we had well on the high side of 100 attendees, so that was a pretty cool thing. And we can blame Gary Morrell for it because I see him sitting there on screen, but he's the poor sap in charge of herding the cats and keeping us all under control. Uh, so that was cool. Saturday afternoon was our rep meeting, and I don't know if anybody's here, but shout out to Broadcasters General Store. Got our award for I guess our reseller award for the most productive last year. But anyway, so if anybody from BGS is here, kudos to them. If they're not, well, sucks that you missed it.
All right. So now
That's
Sunday morning comes, and now it's the third presentation you're involved in.
with with the third, yeah, the third sessions anyway, because I emceed the whole 2 day RF 101 course too.
Okay, we'll
But
give you credit for four.
there you go. But yeah, so that's our nug. They stick a mic in front of me, and basically, I said I'm a trained monkey. You give me a mic, and I cavort. It's probably what I do better than anything. I've got to make a career out of it, which is awesome. But we had a bunch of folks in and did I'll tell you what, I've got the highlight reels. You get the high speed version of what we do in our users group. And I'm not going to run it as a slideshow. I'll just do it as a quick screen share. Let's see, screen 3 is that one. See, too many monitors, not enough brain cells. So I mean, we get in there, and there'll be we had Paul McLean in talking about the things that he likes at NAB, and it was just a whole bunch of various stuff. AI, of course, was a big deal. SBE release and self inspection, the merger of Logitech, Angry Audio, and Max Connect Group to form Triple Helix. That was really cool. So those were his highlights. Just different things there. Then we talked about the EAS at the Edge, and Bill and Ed both did a presentation there. And again, I'm not going to try and steal their thunder. These slide decks are available. Anybody was at the NUG and wants a copy, we can certainly get them. We could probably get them for anybody else, but that requires asking permission of the folks that presented. So, we don't want to get into that too much. And then Jeff Detweiler from Expiry talked about monetizing. And this is kind of the lead in to what we were talking about earlier with RDS. But talking about monetizing the dashboard, and then David Layer came in to talk about metadata in general and doing dashboard audits and looking at the different visibility from different cars and how the touch screens are becoming a much bigger part of the car in general. So your presence on it, and this didn't even talk to one of the things that David and I'm having a brain fart, forgot the name, but I had them on TTT a year or so ago doing a session on dashboard, and one of the things that really became apparent was as we move forward with hybrid radio, the one where when they run out of your over the air signal, they can switch to your internet stream or vice versa. When you drive back into signal range, they can go back to over the air. The challenge with that is if your RDS isn't configured right, then it means that you will disappear from the radio totally, not just the data, but the analog portion as well. So that's something that's kind of critical to make sure that you do an audit. And this is the kind of thing that David does. He drives into cities and he looks at everything, whether they're using the full display, whether they're running the same information on RT and or radio text and postscript or what they're doing, or not postscript, the PS field. So it was definitely kind of an interesting session for that. Then we take a break because that took us an hour, and we ran from there into our product updates, which I am just going to blast through because I don't want to talk about AUI other than
No.
sorry, I couldn't resist. The cool thing is that this year, for the first time, we had a guy walking around with new AUI for GV on port on HDD's portable or solid state hard drives that he was able to give out. So actually, I say give out. He broke it the first day, so we found the bug the first day, so we shipped out replacements this week. But that was pretty cool. So it's, oh my God, what a long, slow haul. Anyway, um, yeah. Talked about the VX series. I don't know if that'd be considered much of an update. Those have been shipping for 2 years now. We do have two or no, 1,000 of them in the field now, so that's pretty cool. And then the GV2, the Just Add Audio, just virtualization stuff. And so that was kind of the highlight of the second hour in my mind. And what did they do here? Oh, yes, that's where the marketing guy puts his spin on stuff. And talking about something else we did do was HD radio test drive, where we're looking at making it so that you can buy, like the GV2 is going to be the same transmitter, whether it's analog or HD. And then all of the HD component is software. So at that point, if you wanted to test it for 4, 5, or 6 months, we can just turn it on and make it good. So that's just something that I guess a lot of folks just don't know if they can monetize HD. So this gives them a chance to try it out and see. So that was kind of cool too. And then the afternoon, instead of doing the usual tips and tricks, I just regurgitated the grounding presentation that I did for my site practice or good site practices discussion with the RF 101. So right down to I left the same slide deck in there. So I gave the SBE a little bit of promo during NUG there, Gary, just so you know. But yeah, I mean, and that's how we wrapped up the hour, talking about some of the good and some of the bad and some of the ugly. Little things like not having ground kits attached or not having ground wires really at all. This one was kind of one of my favorites. So this right here on this left-hand picture is the ground for the tower at this FM site on a mountain. And they couldn't understand why it was so, oh wait, that was the better part. That's the actual AC ground connection. It's like, you know how I tell you I don't like compression connections? Well, I'm not sure if twisting the wires together really counts. There's no real compression, so I guess that's a pass. But yeah, so that was pretty much where we went with Nug, and it was a busy day. We wrapped up at, I think we afternoon we did sessions on AUI followed by HD radio. Had the folks from Exbury on stage with me for the HD radio session, and we wrapped up by about 3:30, something like that.
And then you got to spend 3 days on the floor.
Oh, yeah, that thing. Actually, so the cool thing, I left there, went to the show floor for about an hour because I had a dinner at the Westgate. So it just put me in the right place to walk across to, well, walk across. You can't walk across to the, I guess you could. Was that little pedway open to the Westgate this year from the North Hall? Gary's nodding his head. It was. Okay. Because for anybody who's been to the Las Vegas Convention Center before, they were doing a major renovation to the North Hall, and it was like I've never seen a renovation where they ripped the walls off the outside and the whole building frame shell was like wide open. It was pretty cool to see, but it did make, like Barry said, getting to the central hall a little more of a challenge. You couldn't just walk through the pedways. You had to take the Tesla or go outdoors.
So, what was your favorite part of the NAB show?
Departure lounge at McCarran for the flight home.
I knew you were going to say that.
No, well, you've heard me say it a bunch of times before. Now, I mean, I like being there and being in front of people, but yeah, it's a brutal. I mean, you get up at about 4 or 5 in the morning, you catch all the urgent emails. The advantage is that Atlantic time is 4 hours ahead, so the folks back at the office have had 4 hours to generate make work projects and or forward on whatever important questions they have. That sounds so much better. But after you get those, then you jump in the car and head down to, or however you get to the convention center. You do the show floor from, I think, 9 till 5 or 6. Go to customer dinners, get back to your room at 10 p.m., and then work until about 1 a.m. doing all the emails that you didn't do during the day. And you repeat as required until they let you go home.
There you go. All right. It really does leave you needing a rest day by the time
Oh,
you're done.
no. So we come back. I got back about midnight Friday night, slept most of Saturday, worked on the honeydew list on Sunday, plus prepped for our NAB, post NAB training in house. We do a 3-day training course at Nautel after that for customers coming in from all around the world. This year we had about 2 dozen people come in roughly.
David
So
Land asks us in the chat, did you say the new AUI for the GV is ready?
So GV series with the new controller, which started shipping around about June 2021. That new AUI is in the last beta stage right now. We just sent out, like I say, about half a dozen to select customers that we want to see if they can break it on their standby rigs. After that, yeah, sorry, Dave. But after that, then yeah, the pre-models, John White is, well, he's in marketing, so he's paid to be optimistic. Um, some might even say delusional, but he says he's expecting to see it in a couple of weeks. I'm a little more pessimistic after having my ass burned by this for several years. So I will say that the older GV ones this summer sometime, but I'm not going to commit to any more than that.
Well, we'll
Um,
just keep checking with you.
yep. And VS should follow that as a beta release very shortly after because they're kind of working on them concurrently. And then after that, it's your guess is as good as mine what'll come next. NV Lite and NX low power use similar processor platforms, so and they're both similar to the VS, so they'll be pretty fast, but pretty fast relative to the fact that it's taken us 7 freaking years to get here. So
Okay.
you know,
Well, one of the things that we saw you very flash through on your slide deck And while we have Bill and Adam here, I'd like to mention that you guys have pretty much started to put together a package where all you do is apply audio and transmit. You can either put the Orban or the Omnia inside, and now there is a way in which you're integrating the EAS into the system.
Yeah, and we're doing it pretty much all with Omnia at the moment. Not to say it couldn't go other ways down the road, but Omnia is who we've worked with on this, just with the Just Add Audio project. I'm going to hand it over to Adam and let him talk to it a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Bill, who's on the call, is the actual expert on this, but I can fill in should his voice fail him.
My voice is failing, so I will just add a couple things. That Jeff did a nice job just kind of buzzing through some of the slides.
Camera?
Yeah, I can do that. So the way that we came with this is the fact that we have integrated the with Telos Alliance and therefore the AES 67 output, which we can feed by using LiveWire routing protocol and directly feed that along with our EAS net information into the GV transmitter. The nice thing about that is we, in essence, layered 3 protocols, as I said, AES 67, LiveWire, and EAS net to feed information directly from the edge where we receive the EAS alerts directly into the transmitter, wherever that may be. It could be co-located, they could be remote. But the neat thing is, and Jeff, I don't know if you had pictures of it, but Philip also got pictures showcasing the BMW motorcycle with the HD and with the VIDS graphic presentations. I don't think that's part of our presentation there. But in fact, if you would actually go to slide 39 there, this kind of represents the final stage of everything, where instead of in the past, the concern with EAS has been the fact that the EAS box has to be in line with the audio. And as we go further into audio over IP types of workflows, that becomes a problem because you don't want to have to take the AOIP, drop it down into baseband audio in either AES3 or analog, run it through the switch of the EAS device, and then go back into audio over IP. So the neat thing about this is we can stay in audio over IP. We essentially have virtualized the switch. We didn't virtualize the EAS box, which some people are saying, oh, you need to virtualize that. No, what we need to do is virtualize the switch and make sure that we've got enough protocol and control logic in here. We could go through this in a little bit more detail, but fundamentally, we've also done other very unique things here. One is to turn off the PPM encoder so that if the receive location, fundamentally, if the primary transmitter had PPM encoding on it, we don't want to have to encode PPM and create a problem. So we'll trigger things to turn off the PPM encoding. We'll also put the audio processor into a preset that is optimized for EAS. So doing the things we have, since you're dealing with a dual mono configuration, we have that. We feed the RDS encoder with the text display, the same information you would get over a crawl system on cable or television. And so the RDS element is presented there. Nautel did a very neat job too of integrating what we call VIDS, or visually integrated display symbology, and popping up a display to show you a icon representing the particular alert. So we were doing tsunami alerts, we were doing test alerts, various things like that. And all of those elements were part of the whole thing that we have in this concept of VAS at the edge. And I'm very pleased too that we actually won a Radio World product of the show, NAB 2024 product award. So this is showcased it very nicely. Nautel did an outstanding job of actually putting all of the stuff together with a big box that they had on their stand and a big red button that you could slap, and it would generate an alert, and you would see all of this working, along with consumer displays, not only on their booth, but over at Xperi, the BMW motorcycle and the BMW car would showcase this, including the RDS, the graphic, and everything. So it was very impressive.
Yeah, and the cool thing, so the best way somebody goes, so how does this work? And I go, think sidechain RDS. And that's basically what you're doing. We're just sticking it on. Obviously, there's a lot more routing and control than that, but yep, that's the cheap and dirty way to describe it.
Okay. Very good. Bill, well, as long as you're here, how many people had problems with the FEMA thing this week?
I actually don't know, Barry. So I'm not. I haven't heard anything from our support team, so I'm not absolutely sure.
Okay. I heard from a few, and they'd already installed the 5.2 or whatever, but did not have the updated certificate.
Yeah. And that's one of the problems with that is the fact that the version of the software doesn't necessarily match up with the certificate, which is, kind of one of the things. If they had an old certificate from way back, didn't update them. So we try to get ahead of that. We actually had that certificate out for quite a while. If you will, the positive thing now is I think the current certificate is good until 2031 or something like that. And it was a change that FEMA did because they changed who their digital signer was. So that was kind of what forecast. That's why we had to do a couple of them in a quick succession a couple of years ago. And now this one is going to be at least much longer life for this particular certificate.
Well, that's good to know. It's good to know. All right.
I'm going to go quiet and dark because I don't have much voice left.
Okay.
Very much.
Sure. Jeff, it's that GV2 that was the real star of your booth this year.
Yeah, I mean, last year we showed it as a science project, and this year we were able to show it as something that's physically working. Alex Hartman, who's our breaker of all things new, has got one of the first GV2s running at KVSC, which is cool because he's got it running right beside the very first original GV series, GV10. So he's got a GV210 and a GV110, I guess, for lack of a better word. We're having that discussion because John White likes to do the GV2, but he's got it supersetted. And I said, there's not an engineer on the planet that won't call that GV squared. And anyway, so, that's what I'll do till the day I die. But yeah, it's kind of cool. And I tell people it doesn't mean that you have to virtualize everything and put it in the cloud, but it's really cool that it gives you that level of a capability. So you've got the option. And I mean, with it, you can virtualize everything, leave it in the transmitter. You can have a hardware backup at the site. You could have a hardware backup at your TOC and your own servers. Or shoot, as far as for our demo purposes, we backed it up onto AWS and on cloud servers.
His whole business of cloud and virtualizing is getting, well, we talked about AI, we talked about cloud.
Yep.
Broadcast Bionics is showing a complete virtualized rack where they'll put one of everything in the rack, which is on our drive or in the cloud.
And I don't have an issue with it, but when that great fiber seeking backhoe comes by, you damn well better have a hardware backup where you can get to it.
Well, that's a major thing that maybe we should just talk about one week, 1 month ahead.
Yeah.
Backups. So many stations have either got to a point where, because it's expensive for the floor space for an auxiliary, or because they're just too cheap, or maybe they've got an Nautel and it's run for 10 years and they think it's going to run forever.
I'm here to tell you, if current goes through it, eventually current will stop going through it for one reason or another. And if you don't have a backup, you're going to be off the air until you get that resolved. So it's like I tell people, and we did a whole session on this. I don't remember whether it was at, oh, good Lord. I mean, there have been so many sessions over the past several weeks that it might have been just when I was doing our post NAB last week. But you've got to look at the ROI on everything. Like, what's your off-air time cost you? And what does it, if your off-air time is only worth a couple $1,000s a day, and then, you're typically not off air more in a day or two, then you're probably not going to drop $100,000 on a backup transmitter. Or so you get $100,000 transmitter and you only make a couple $1,000s a day, then you may want to reassess your whole business practice, but that's an entirely different conversation.
Do you sell a lot of N+1 kilowatt or 2.5 kilowatt boxes?
Overseas, absolutely do. Domestically, no. Now, what we do a lot of the groups, and I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but there are a lot of groups that will keep a couple of like VX1s or VS1s, depending, little suitcase size UPS shippable 1 kilowatts at their, say, a head office or a couple of regional offices where they can get them to anywhere in their territory fast. And I know it's far enough gone that I don't think there's a statute of limitations, but Wisconsin Public Radio had 4 VS2.5s in big honkin' Pelican cases. And they had another set of cases that had 100 feet of Superflex with a Shively Versatune and an assortment of adapters. So they basically had an entire transmitter site in 2 Pelican cases that they could chuck in a van and have anywhere in the state in a pretty short time. So that I think is becoming more common. What I am starting to see, and I mean, you see it a lot here and there. I haven't really looked at the attendee list to see if any names I recognize show up, but I see a lot of where you get the contract engineering groups like InRush or Munreese does more consulting. I see Rick's there. But yeah, so InRush, Summit Technology out of Michigan, Max Connect Group as contract engineering, DNAV are all over. And I don't want to forget anybody, but I know I'm going to, so I'll apologize in advance. But a lot of cases where you've got the engineering groups will tend to have smaller, like 1 or 2 kilowatt rack mount transmitters that they can loan or rent, depending, and get you back on the air in a hurry.
Well, this is maybe more a question for one of the consultants, maybe Rick, maybe Tim Sawyer, who I think is online today. If you're off a mountaintop and your main goes down, you really, I mean, why would you want to wait to ship a box in even overnight? If you could put a kilowatt or 2 kilowatts on the air, who's going to know the difference?
So that's a loaded question. That
It is.
depends. See, like, I give you an example. I got a customer that is currently running a 500 watts relative to 3,500 because their 3,500, not us, is gone down, and they're running on a loaner while they wait for a new transmitter. And they're discovering 500 is not hitting the fringes where they do have a significant population. So, that's one example where some signal's better than no signal. I mean, for me, at our station, 75 watts, I can run that into 2 inches of radial ice on my tower, and it'll cover the community license, which is what I really need to do without filing or the Canadian version of an STA. But it's only covering that one community, and we cover 7 other communities with our normal signal. So again, we're protecting our license, but we're not necessarily serving our community at that point.
Depends on the height of your antenna, actually. If you think about some places, you can hear a 10-watt translator for 80 miles in some cases.
Yep. It very much. I mean, for us, we're 650 feet above sea level, but of course, if you encase the whole thing on ice, you're not radiating 10 watts with 75 out. You're lucky if you're radiating 2. But yeah, it's very situational. Not having a backup transmitter is a challenge, and like Dave said, yeah, 3.5 kilowatts will cover pretty well. Just doesn't get in the buildings quite as much. And
I have two backup transmitters here for our network because of the fact that we're spread across the state so far. And
mhm,
a 2 kilowatt and a 500 watt. Well, the 500 watt's great for the translators. The 2 kilowatt will work for any of the higher power stations, although we've got a few now that we've actually invested RS switches once we got the new Nautels put in so that we do have a redundant transmitter. But I found that carrying these in road cases in the back of the truck was
it'll
well
save your
worth
butt.
huh?
It'll
Yeah.
save your butt. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And of course, I learned real quick, make sure you've got the adapters you need to do it, and make sure you've got the right power plug wired up.
And that's kind of a big one. I got that call today, a guy putting in a VX 600, and he was really upset that we didn't provide a power cable with it. And it's like, so you didn't read the quick start guide that told you we provide the mating connector and here's how to wire it, and you didn't read the installation instructions that we sent with your original order that said this is what you need to connect the AC, and now it's our fault. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things you do need to, as part of your planning, make sure that you have this stuff ahead of time.
You raise that issue, and that VS 2.5 that's been sitting there for 5 years out on the reservation may go into
Mhm.
operation next month.
Oh, sweet.
Um,
I'm not starting warranty over.
you're not. My goodness. But to speak to David's point that you mentioned, back in the day, I had a RCA 10 go down, and the only auxiliary there was a BC1B in Old Gates that was in pieces, and I was able to get the exciter going. And I don't know, I figured it was, a couple hundred watts maybe. And the group chief engineer was driving down from Phoenix to help. He got within about 30 miles of Tucson, heard the signal, figured we were back up, and went home. It was just a couple hundred watts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, my all-time record breaker was to disable all of the protection in an FM7 that had suffered a catastrophic malady, and disabled all the protection and connected one IPA output directly to the antenna. So it was on frequency. Was it generating harmonics? Statute of limitations, don't know, but but yeah, it was on the air. Now, had they had the old transmitter, which they rooted out because they're like, we're getting an Autel, we don't need a backup. And it's like, no. If you had a perfectly working transmitter, you don't chuck out a perfectly working transmitter unless you don't physically have the room. And I mean, if you don't have the room, then sure. And I've got one going in to not too far from where Mr. Murill is sitting right now, a little bit south of him, where they took out a working transmitter, but they put in a new GV, and their NV will become the backup. So they're still, it's still going to be man standby. They just got rid of the 30-year-old or 40-year-old backup and replaced it with a 20-year-old backup.
Well, you could take a lesson from what the AmFed 1 turned into a full-size cabinet with a lot of space.
Mm-hmm.
You could start shipping transmitters with a 1 kilowatt spare or 2.5 kilowatt spare built in.
Mm-hmm. Almost. And I mean, we've done that with the rack mount with the VX stuff, where you have a couple of 6 kilowatts or 5 kilowatts, and then a VX2 as a backup, and all the switching and control and everything in one rack. So, it wouldn't be a first. We do a lot of that for the overseas market. It's just domestically, it's really rare to get anybody thinking proactively on backup transmitters.
That's true. That's true.
Not unheard of, just rare.
Yeah. Again, especially with all the diplexing, triplexing, floor space becomes an issue. And the simple way to deal with that is to not have an auxiliary, they think.
Yep. Well, it's like I say, sometimes you have to make do with what you got. Other times you have a little more flexibility. So it's all situational. But even if you are in that jam, then doing like Mark said and having a couple of low power transmitters, a kilowatt or so. I mean, these days you can get a 2 kilowatt transmitter in two rack units. So, it doesn't take a whole pile of physical space, and they weigh 25 pounds. You can tuck it under your arm and carry it. Not that I've done that, but I've done that.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so, there are a lot of options. One of the other options, and I just saw Bert pop up, so I'm going to call him. I'm going to reference him. But some of the stuff the geo broadcast guys are doing with single frequency networking, instead of having one big station in the middle of your area, put four little stations, and then just clock them all together. And then, depending on your specific layout, that can be a viable alternative too. Then, if you're almost never in that case going to lose all four.
Yeah, in
So
San Francisco, we've got one station using five, we call them nodes. We had a different manufacturer's transmitter fail last week, and only one of the nodes was down for as long as we could get a replacement part, about 24 hours. So all the other nodes kept going just fine, and I don't think they got any phone calls. So there's just kind of a little gap, in between the two other nodes. So
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, that was one thing that the DAB on L-band did do well, was that if you had a node go down, you weren't losing at all. But it had other challenges, because when you get into the gigahertz, your line of sight gets a whole lot closer than than it does in the AM band, for example. Speaking of AM band, I see Pierre finally woke up. Hi, Pierre. But so yeah, I mean, it's just it's like I say, the whole concept of backups is something that we have gotten away from over the years, and a lot of it's been just a economy of scale, and some of it's been, oh, it never goes off the air, and it's like, yeah, but if you can't shut it down, how do you get in to tighten the nuts and bolts so it never keeps going off the air? I'm
Well, does
flicking.
anybody have any questions for Jeff about any of the new Nautel products, or question for Bill about the DASDEC and its integration, or anything else NAB related? Next week, I think I've already got uh, the MDCL discussion for AM. That's no, that's 2 weeks from now. I'm running out of brains.
Mine are all still somewhere in the desert trying to get rehydrated. But
Yeah. Well,
hey,
that's,
on the plus side, I only gained 4 pounds this NAB. Usually I do a lot better than that.
oh, really? Yeah.
I blame it on Wilson running me around Fremont Street at all hours of the night.
Well, at least you got downtown. Did you
Yep,
get to
yep.
the Central Hall?
Once, very briefly, we wandered over and visited the folks from Telos and Tyline and Comrex, and so it's all them. It was like I say, with the North Hall not being there or not being accessible this year as a walkthrough, it really did kind of isolate the West from the Central a lot more.
It did.
So hopefully that'll be resolved and fixed by next year. But otherwise, it wasn't a bad show. It was really good.
That's partially right. Rich Redmond and Tim Hardy, your old compatriot,
Hmm.
will be here on the 16th to talk about MDCL.
Cool.
Next week, we're going to have Tony Gervasi talking about interplex and audio processing.
Neat. So yeah, I mean, and Tim's MDCL was what? Well, he was the one that put the MDCL in our NX series. So
Mhm.
standard feature in the NX, and that was to his credit, he insisted on leaving it in as standard, not making it a payable option. So
And what I understand is it will now retrofit to almost any transmitter in the last 15, 20 years.
What's what BE's doing?
Right.
Now could be. Don't know. I don't know enough about that. You definitely wait the 2 weeks and ask them.
Yeah. There you go. So, any other thoughts for Jeff before he runs away?
Real Boss has got her car in the shop today, so she got this spunky new Mini that goes like stink, and managed to crack a rim on a curb with it already. So that's off getting welded, because apparently mini rims are less or less cost effective than one might think. Replacing one is a financial decision. Let's put it this way.
Well, Jeff, I think it's we can close it down for you. Let you
It's
get on to your next.
been a fun hour. I'm going to run the wife over to the service center, get her repaired vehicle, and tell her to go forth and sin no more,
All right.
or
No.
at least don't kiss any curbs in the process.
We'll look forward to seeing you next month, if
Yeah,
not sooner.
I'll be around. You'll see me here or there. So,
Good. Good.
but
Thank you.
let's see. I'm trying to remember. We're in May, end of this month. I got to be somewhere. Oh, Louisiana. I get to go to New Orleans again this year. I'm crashing Jeff Wilson's party in New Orleans. It might still be his territory. It might be his territory now, but they invite me down to talk, and that means I get to go and eat beignets and drink Sazeracs, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
I was just there last week. Ha ha ha.
It's like I said, I love New Orleans. It's a great place to visit. You couldn't pay me enough to live there, but that's for the, I'm a northern guy. I like to see the ice and snow a little here and there.
Well,
You
that's
need
where
to
I
eat
was
at
born, and I'm
Felix's
proud of
while
it.
you're there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to leave you all go. It is very close to the top of the hour, and we will see you, if not before, then next month for sure.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks very much.
See y'all.